Hi, Paul. Thank you so much for joining us today for Anosmia Awareness Day 2023. To get started with our conversation today, I really wanted to learn a little bit more about you and your background. So can you give us a general introduction? Who are you and what do you do?
Bonjour, Cathy. I wanted to introduce myself in French because I am live from Montreal. I'm currently working as a vice president of sales for a potato grower. And I've been doing that since my cancer treatment ended in 2016. So on that line, in 2016, in January of 2016, I was diagnosed with throat cancer. So after that, I had 8 rounds of chemo. I had 30 rounds of radiation, and all looked good until I realized afterwards that my smell and or my taste was not coming back as it was planned. There are people that happen to wait a while. They can wait a few weeks, a few months. Mine's been 6 years now, and unfortunately, it just hasn't come back. So I'm living with those scars from cancer-free, I must say, but the scars are still there.
Yeah, so I mean, having to go through the whole cancer thing by itself is huge. And then to add on top of that, you go through and now you're cancer free, which is amazing. But now you're having to deal with the smell and taste dysfunction, which you've had now for 6 years. So that's kind of one of the main reasons that I wanted to speak with you today. It's because you're currently facilitating conversations for men who are also dealing with cancer, and you're working closely with them while they're managing their mental health in that aspect. So my question for you is, why is it important to manage one's mental health regarding a loss, and whether that's related to cancer, and specifically also for smell and taste loss?
That's a great question. When it was first diagnosed, some of the doctors or the specialists decided to send me to see a psychologist. And they wanted the psychologists who don't have a lot of experience with what I'm going through, suggested that I treat it as a loss of a close one. Their therapy of losing your sense of smell and taste was like looking at it like losing someone, like a family member or somebody close. Unfortunately, it didn't work for me. So I went and I became a facilitator and a peer mentor at our local cancer club called Hope and Cope. And there I'm able to deal on a monthly basis with people who have, or are going through cancer treatments. And it's very important, you know, you hit a good word. The mental health is so important during your journey, whether it's a journey of cancer or any type of journey. Your mental health must be strong to help your body cope with what it's about to do. When I did learn about my smell and taste, it was significant. You know, I don't know if people have ever done this when in their past, they've always said, you know, if I had to lose one of my senses, which one would I lose? And you can always try pretending you can't see. You can always try pretending that you can't hear. But you can't pretend that you can't smell, or you can't pretend that you can't taste. So it's very difficult even to this day. I still have issues. You know, you have to think back of the positive that you're getting out of it and not just the negative. So I try and tell the people that I talk to, either over the phone or in person, how important it is to surround yourself with good people, and how important it is to stay strong mentally, be it through exercise, be it through meditation, and just try and cope the best you can.
So what's amazing to me from your story that you just shared is the fact that your doctors actually referred you on to a psychologist. That's pretty cool. That doesn't happen often here, at least in my experience from speaking with people.
You know what? I don't think they've had people that have lasted this long without the sense of smell or taste coming back. Some people will have a taste of iron. Some people will lose it for a small period of time. I mean, one of the best things that came out of COVID, if there is anything that I can say that came out of COVID, was the fact that there was an awareness to the loss of smell and taste, which actually brought conversations and brought what ifs. If you go on Google now, there's more information about what to do if you lose your sense of smell and taste, all the tests that you can do and whatever. But I even tried acupuncture. Like, and it just, for me, it just didn't work. And it just, as time progressed, as it just never got better. And it's funny because even to this date, if I order a meal out of a restaurant, I still believe that by the time the food comes, I'm going to smell it and taste it. I still hasn't locked into my head that, or my mind, that this is a permanent. This isn't temporary. So it's something, you know, you talked about mental health. It's something you have to deal with every day. And people don't realize when you're out with other people at a restaurant or you're out at a family gathering, food becomes a topic of choice, because usually you're there eating, you're having a supper, you're having friends over, there's something, and food just becomes everything. Talk about the spices and how does it taste and what you can do differently. So you're reminded daily. I mean, it's not, you know, you see the commercials. The commercials look great when you can't smell it. You know, it's tough.
I know it's a very subjective question, but something I'm wondering is, what would you rate your ability to smell and taste? Are both completely gone, or like on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you rate them?
Both completely gone. Both completely gone. And what I find is, you know, the people have it, people look at it and say, well, you've overcome your cancer, so what's so bad about not smelling and tasting? Like, you know, you're still working, you're still physically able, you're not disabled, you know, you're still great. But they don't realize the importance. They don't realize the importance of navigating through the day without smelling. Like you're really lost, you're really confused. And I can go on about examples, but that's not what this is all about. It's to try and stay mentally, you know, to stay focused, to eat. Yeah, we need to eat. We can't smell it or taste it, but we need to eat. So people say, well, you know, what do you do to eat? I eat with my past. If it looks good, it's going to go down well. So very different.
Yeah. Well, that's the question that I have for you, actually, that comes from what you just said, is you do have to eat. It's something that's obviously very important for everyone. But since you have no sense of smell or taste, you really have no taste. My question for you is, what kind of coping skills do you have to help you with eating? Do you set reminders? Do you meal plan?
Survival. I hate to be so blunt, but it's survival. You try and choose the best you can and the most eye appealing. So it becomes something that looks good. If it looks good, you know, because I was born with smell and taste up until 6 years ago, so I still have a very good memory that a pizza looks more, you know, looks better than Brussels sprouts do. So, you know, so I'm easier attracted to pizza, but a lot of times maybe I won't finish it because I get frustrated. 6 years down the road, I still get a sense of frustration because it's, you know, it's filling me up, but it doesn't taste like there's nothing happening there. Some people suggested, you know, I do some peer mentoring, and I have a very good friend who will put spices or will put maple syrup on stuff to try and get sugar. But it just at the end of the day, you got to remain strong. You got to stay focused. You know, I don't want to step backwards. I want to continue to step forward. So I try and not let it hamper me. But when people look at you, they don't see a disability. They don't see that. You know, we don't have a crutch. We don't have any facility moving. So it's a little bit different.
Absolutely. Another question that comes up for me is, in the course of your facilitated group sessions, how many people typically present with smell and taste issues due to their cancer and radiation? Is it like one person here or there, or is it like you hear from a lot of people who are having issues?
So I can tell you that I've been facilitating for about 5 years. Same thing with the peer mentoring. Generally, cancer victims, generally head and throat issues. And so far I've met 2. So out of 5 years, I've met 2 people. One who she had lost her sense of taste and came back, and one who has never regained either or. So people, it's not a general subject. When I tell people, and that's not just anybody, it has to be close friends or somebody I can trust. When I tell somebody, they have a hard time believing it. They really do. They don't see any handicap in it. They don't understand it. They just, and it's good in a sense, Katie. It's good because they don't treat you any differently. If I'm out with a bunch of guys and the subject of food doesn't come up, everybody's eating chicken wings and nobody, I can't smell anything. I try and feel normal. I don't know if you understand. I just try and feel normal. I order coffee. I never drink coffee. I order coffee at the end of a meal because I want to try and feel normal.
Like the rest of the group.
Like the rest of the group, and I still put salt on stuff, and they look at me and go, "Why are you doing that?" Because I just want to try and feel normal. So it's something I try and do, but navigating the world without smell is horrible. It's very difficult, and people just don't seem to get it because you can't pretend that. You just can't pretend that, oh, I can't smell anything. And actually, some people, even today at the dentist, the hygienist said, oh, I guess it must come in handy sometimes. Like, joke, haha. No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Right.
So anyway.
Those kinds of comments can be like very harmful, even though the person may not realize that it is, or how much it's impacting you, because again, it's an invisible condition. So they don't even know that they've just said something that could be harmful to you.
I know.
Absolutely. So one of the things that you mentioned at the beginning was, again, you got referred to a psychologist, which I think is amazing. Go Canada. One of the things that the psychologist mentioned to you is to treat it as a loss and kind of think of it as going through like the grieving process. And I know that you said that didn't work very well for you specifically, but I just am sitting here thinking that that's really cool that that was an idea for people, because at least in my own experience, I went through a general practitioner, like my family doctor. I went to an ENT, and then I went to a neurologist. And then at the end of that, I was just sort of like left, like, we don't have a treatment for you. We don't really, there's nothing to do. So goodbye and good luck with your life. And I was 19 at the time.
Oh my
So
God.
like, that's a lot of living left to do with being bereft, basically, at this loss and not having anyone refer me to go to a psychologist. So kind of where I'm going with this is, I think that it is definitely, for me, it being a loss resonates. And I think that like the grieving process applies, and that it goes up and down, right? Like you don't go through like the 5 stages of grief and then, okay, you're done and you're cured. It's definitely a process that goes up and down through time, because most of the time I'm perfectly fine and I hang out in like the acceptance stage of the grieving process. Sometimes you get like super pissed, and sometimes you get really sad or angry. So yeah,
it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to hear you say that, because I reflect exactly those same sentiments from everything. And where you hit it right on the nose is the up and down. I still go to the store, I do groceries. So I go to the store and I'll look at something and I'll go, you know what? I think I can taste it. I can feel it. I can smell it. I'm going to bring it home, and I bring it home and I try it and it doesn't work, and I throw it out, and I get like super upset with myself because of the fact that you just mentioned. The psychologist, maybe it was too early in my stage to let it try and work. The idea is not bad, but I don't think there's anybody out there that has the same bond as we do, in the sense that they just don't understand. They're trying. They're professionals. They're going to try something. And it was the same thing with the doctors. It took them a long time. I finished on June 14th, 2016 was my last radiation treatment. And they said, oh, don't worry, Paul. You know what? It's normal. It'll come back. Well, my birthday was in November, and I couldn't. And then Christmas came, and I was looking forward to the turkey. And then finally, after my 5 years, they said, just like you, oh, well, we don't have a magic button or a magic switch, where some other, I don't know what the right word is, but there are cures for other problems or other diseases.
Hmm.
but there just isn't one. I tried the smelling test. My wife was very good. She put different scents in a jar, and every day I would smell it and see if it would kickstart it. No, nobody. You're right in the sense that you're just left alone.
Hmm.
Just deal with it. I'm lucky because I talk every week to a fellow cancer patient. One guy that I found who has exactly the same thing as me, and we've been talking for 3 years, about an
But
hour
that's
every week,
wonderful.
and it's just so wonderful to talk about and just relate about what's going on.
Yeah, it's amazing to be able to have a resource to just speak with and they understand exactly what you're going through. You don't have to explain, like, no, really, I mean, I can't smell. No, really, I mean, I can't taste. They just understand exactly what you mean. And there's something so valuable in that.
It's hard too because I'm in the fruit and vegetable business. I've
Hmm.
been in it for almost 50 years. So a lot of it has to do with the simple fact of smelling and tasting. And luckily, I've got a lot of seniority, and I've been doing it for so long that I don't need to be doing that. But they'll do a sample of a new product, and don't come looking to me to give you your opinion. I don't know. You
Well,
know,
that's actually a good question. And I think you already answered it, but how has it impacted your work?
it has it really has. As a salesman, you know, you want to be able to describe your product. It does, whether you're describing nails or potatoes, it doesn't really matter. You want to try and sell the product. So I'm missing a little bit in the fact that I can't say to a customer, you know what, I tried these wonderful potatoes last night and they were great, they were fantastic. I could, because they don't know, but it's against my principle
Mm.
of doing this. I wanted to mention something else that was very interesting that I did on my email signature. I have a logo of a pair of boxing gloves and the cancer logo on at the bottom of my signature. I've had that there for probably 5 years. And about 2 or 3 years ago, when I discovered the word anosmia, I put it on the bottom of my logo signature. And nobody has ever questioned that. I must send
Mm.
out, let's say I send out 50 emails a day, times week, times month, times years. It's right there, it's very visible. Sure, you'll read the email, but you see my signature. Nobody has ever asked what that was, what that
Mm.
word meant. Very interesting. Either they don't care, or they afraid to ask. They don't want to go down some rabbit hole that they might be, you know, afraid of seeing the answer. But it's very ironic that nobody ever asked what that word was. So I
Yeah.
thought I'd share that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. So I want to pivot a little bit and I would like to ask you, since you facilitate these groups and you speak with so many people about what they're dealing with, what's your best advice for someone who's living with smell and taste dysfunction? And this could be either like general advice that you have, or this could be something specific that's really useful for you.
You know, I wish I could tell you I was cured mentally. I am not. I do my best to stay focused, stay normal. I don't make a big deal out of not being able to smell anything. I bring it up. Do I get moody? Maybe a little bit sometimes when I get very frustrated, but I think you got to stay focused. You got to stay focused. And some people have told me so often, you know, you're alive, you're well, you got a job. Yeah, you can't smell or you can't taste. I just don't like when they add it could be worse. I don't like that sentence of it could be worse. But overall, I think you got to stay focused. And there's so many other scars that the people live with, and you just gotta, you know, you gotta do your best to move forward. I don't sit and think about it. I try and work around it. So I try and make food appealing for me, appealing to the look. You know, some blueberries or something good, some yogurt, something really nice. I love pizza. You know, to make it a really nice looking pizza, and not sit there and think to myself as I'm eating it, I can't taste it or I can't smell it. It's too bad. It's too bad, because that's the way it is. It's the color
Right.
of our skin. It's the color of our hair. you know, I got to live with this. And it's not easy. It's really not easy. I'm not going to tell you this is easy. There are days, just like you said, up and down. Some days are a struggle, but I've got a good support system at home. I've got great support system from friends, and the men's club at the cancer, you know, you get to listen to other people. And it is true. Sometimes you listen to other people who have had brain tumors. And you're thinking to yourself, oh my God, you know, there is always worse.
Mm-hmm.
But you got to stay mentally healthy. Meditation is great. Exercise is great. Stay focused. And I mean, I wish there was something I could do. I told the doctor, Jewish general here in Montreal, if they ever find a cure, if they ever want to put my name down on a trial, some miracle pill, I'll be the first one in line. If not, just stay focused. Great organization like yours who send out wonderful emails about other people. Reading about other people and knowing about other people helps.
Mm-hmm.
You don't feel isolated. You don't feel like you're just yourself. So what you do is great. What I think it's the Morel Institute or Monel. Monel. You know, you get those type of emails and you read about other people and how they deal with it. We have to be together on this, and it's not just one person. There are more than one of us out there. And if you would have asked me that 6 years ago, I would have thought there's nobody out there that can't smell or taste. It just doesn't happen. But when you realize that there are, and I think there are conventions, and it's conversation, mental health.
Well, I think you just answered my next question, actually, because I was going to ask you, what does anosmia awareness mean to you? But I think what you just said of connecting with others, realizing that you're not alone, you're not isolated, even though you can feel that way, is really important. But is there anything else you'd like to add to that about what anosmia awareness means to you?
No, I think a dialogue. You need, you know, Dr. Google isn't always the greatest reference. You need to have information like that you send out and other people send out. And if you've got an opportunity to talk to people, you got to talk to people. And sometimes even making a joke. Like, I still have friends who are lifelong friends who they forget because it's not visual. It's not something like your arm is busted up. They'll say, hey, how's I hate the reference pizza, but how's the pizza? And you go, I can't taste it. It tastes just the same as yours, you know? So you can try and make a little bit of a joke about it, because you're not going to change anything. It's not going to, nothing's going to happen overnight. So
right.
You know, I think the awareness part is great. I think people need to know more about it. There are still people, like I said, who just don't know what that word is. They don't know that this is a bad thing to have. It's not a good thing. So
yeah, I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense. But one of the first thing is for people to be aware that you can lose your sense of smell and taste. Like, I think most people are vaguely aware that you can lose your sense of smell and taste if they've had a bad cold, something like that. And it usually comes back, right? Correct. I think the first thing people have to know about is that you can lose your sense of smell and taste for a prolonged period of time. And then the second and more important thing is, besides just knowing that fact, it's understanding what that means in someone's daily life, their quality of life, and how it's impacted, right? Just because what you've expressed today and what I try to tell people is, yeah, I've lost my sense of smell. Okay, fine, I get it. But then you go in and you have conversations with people and you really explain how it is impacting you on a daily basis. And then there's almost like this moment where they're like, oh, now I really get it.
Yeah.
Now I really understand what you're telling me.
Very well said. Exactly.
Yeah, like I have a friend who, through my work with STANA and the Smell podcast, I share like stories from people who have anosmia, and one of them was through the Smell podcast, and the quote was something about how the person who wrote in said that they were very upset because they would never be able to smell their dad's perfume or his cologne. They would never be able to smell their dad's cologne again because they had anosmia. And it really resonated with that person because they were like, oh, I remember when my dad died, I was so sad, but I had his cologne there that I could go and smell, and it brought back memories. And she's like, now I get it. Now I understand what you've been saying. is like you would no longer be able to spray that cologne and have that memory of your father anymore. It's like one more thing that's just like cut off.
Yeah, very true. It's a great story. It's so true. Just daily life. I mean, I find stuff in the fridge. I have to run to my wife and is it good? Does it smell right? You know, like
All
those
the
are
time.
those are just regular occurrences at my house. I'm sure at your house as well. It's like
Yep.
you just don't know.
Absolutely.
You know, we become survivors. We become warriors. You know, this isn't a cancer call, but the cancer makes you stronger because you go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Just wish people would have told me a little bit more. You know, if I had to look back at it, you know, they said, you know, it could be temporary. Well, there's a difference between it could be temporary and it's like it's gone. Oh,
Right.
well, it's gone. There's nothing we can do about it. You know, it's like it's gone. So who can I talk to? Well, you know, we'll send you to a psychologist. So they tried. But, you know, going back to one of the questions you asked me earlier, in the men's club or in the people that I talk to, everybody's everybody's tired, but tired, or they're going through their treatments, but nobody except for 2 people have had this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's rare, but you know, I deal with a lot of other people and a lot of other circumstances. But overall, the mental health, whether you're dealing with one problem or another, you got to be strong mentally. You got to surround yourself with good people.
Absolutely. So Paul, my last question for you is, do you have anything else that you'd like to share? Any last thoughts?
No, I think this was great. I think what you do as an organization is fantastic. I applaud you and everybody, you know, everybody that can get together and talk to people, be it on social media or over the phone or through newsletter. It's all great, because the more you read about other people with the same symptoms as you, the more relief you get, and the more you associate, and you can say, oh, I have that, or I have this, and I'm not alone. You got to realize you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not battling this alone. So that's what I can tell you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us today, and happy Anosmia Awareness Day.
Thank you. My pleasure.